Hello and welcome to Gravitas WINS Conversations. 3D printing looks like a mix of engineering and science fiction. It is one field that seems to have potential to affect all parts of our life. To discuss this further, I invited Anand, who has been deeply involved in this field for quite a long time. Hope you find this conversation useful. Hello, Anand. Welcome to the conversation.
Hi, Jude. Good evening to you. Thank you for inviting me.
What is 3D printing and how does it work?
3D printing is another manufacturing process which is digitally controlled by a computer data where it add materials, and then bonds them together to form a shape, um, and also to give the strength for that particular component or part which is printed. This is just the opposite of a machining process. In a machining you have a block, you remove those materials and then you form a shape. Here you start with nothing, you add one material after another material, and then you grow them just like you would build a house with one brick on top of the other, and then you can get the complete whatever you want to build, an airplane, you want to build a jewelry, you want to build a human spare part, everything you can print like that. And there are different methods to do that. You can print from powders, can be from gold powders, steel powders, silver powders. You can print from filaments, where the raw material is in the form of a wire, so it is extruded through the filaments. And there are also some semi-solid materials. Like when you look into printing of cement, a house, you have a material which concrete which comes through that. So there are different ways and means to do that, but in the end, it's a completely digitally manufactured controlled process where you can build or print anything grounds up.
Anand, how did you get started in 3D printing? How long you have been involved in this?
I started, after I finished engineering, I got into, I was a mechanical engineer, so I was like, after finishing, I went to the shop floor. I found it really hot to stand there, and it's so dirty and all those stuff. And well, I was looking at something which is really pretty cool. Like when you look into an Intel factory, it's all air conditioned, automized, and other things. So at that time, 3D printing in earlier area times were called rapid prototyping. You know, and so I started to look into this technology way back in 1996, and I realized that this is a technology which has complete mechanical engineering, but it can go on a digital direction. So I got into this technology initially with polymers, which is plastic extrusion, and then in '98 I started into a technology which is called powder bed fusion, where you can use both polymer and metal powders. And it's been more than 25 years I'm working on this field right
Wow,
now.
that's a pretty long
Yeah,
time.
the industry itself is about 30-32 years old.
So you've been from the nation stage, so to speak,
Yeah, absolutely.
in this particular field. What are some of the works that you've done in India?
See, if you look from an Indian perspective, uh, we work with several hospitals, because 3D printing, as I mentioned, you can print most of the things what you dream. You only need a CAD file or a computer file. So there are very significant works which we have done along with several hospitals where people have been admitted with trauma or cancer patients whose bones have been degenerated. So you exactly have to print the exact area, because if you look in today's world, you would see that the implants or the metal spare parts what you get are like your t-shirts, small, medium, large. So nothing is specific to your size. So in the end, the doctor works like a carpenter. He cuts the bones, and then tries to fix that big implant to you, which makes your recovery longer, your hospitalization longer, surgery longer, quality of life will also get affected. So with 3D printing, you can exactly print what is needed for you without cutting extra bones or anything like that. So we've been working with several hospitals through our ecosystem where they were able to implant into people who are suffering from trauma or from any of these cancerous reasons where they have to remove certain of their limbs or bones, and then you can put them. So that's a lot on the medical side, and also. If you look into the aerospace side, I mean, from an Indian context, you asked me, so I'm saying this. Um, we work with Indian Defense Air Force typically. I mean, with all these war and other things, we have a lot of demand for spare parts, specifically in aircrafts. We have a lot of fleet of Russian aircrafts where we don't get spare parts from Russia. And we've been able to show them how 3D printing can replace spare parts on demand. And that's been pretty interesting or fulfilling uh, uh, from the nation's point of view. And also, we've been pretty much involved with ISRO in all their rockets programs, where we've been able to reduce weight so that they can have a higher payload. So, I would say medical, aerospace, space has been driving us for quite a long time in India.
What are the factors that drive this adaptation of 3D printing in all the fields?
I think the biggest advantage with 3D printing is your minimum order quantity can be one. Because in manufacturing,
Mm,
if you say you need to have a scale to really manufacture, otherwise it's not economical. With 3D printing, your minimum order quantity can be one. This is biggest advantage for any industry, and that's why spare
mm,
parts and human spare parts also are very interesting for people. The second is you can control the weight of the part. Today, we talk about fuel economy, carbon emission, so many factors as you see. And for everything, what finally it boils down to weight. You know, for example,
mm,
even if you might think, how is weight connected to an X-ray machine? For example, companies which make X-ray machines, they are trying to reduce the weight of the X-ray machine because they have to transport it from different places, and logistic cost also increases to the whole thing. So weight becomes an important factor, and with 3D printing, since we grow from bottoms up, uh, weight can be controlled. And the third important is consolidation of parts. For example,
mm,
if you have to manufacture something which is anything, for example, you might have 5 or 6 different operations to add parts, subtract parts, and other things. But this here with 3D printing, you can print everything together. For example, if you have a cup and you have the handle of the cup, sometimes the cup is printed made first and the handle is attached together. Example, I'm just giving an example. Imagine if both can be printed together, so you save two manufacturing process, you save more manpower, and you can actually get a better part out of it. So, and also the design becomes a very crucial factor. You can really design for function and not for the manufacturing process.
mm. You first talked about the rapid prototyping. That's how, in India, at least, this particular thing started. What is the effect of rapid prototyping? Especially, you talked about the manufacturing could be for one. So, are there cases where you were able to, or whether you have been doing it or in 3D printing across the world, that rapid prototyping has created some interesting outputs in a longer time period?
Well, when you look at new product, everything starts from development, right? For example, when you develop a new car or a new motorbike or anything, even a mobile phone, you initially need parts to fix them together, to test them before you're sure that this part, everything is perfect, design is perfect, it fits together, functionality is perfect, it goes through all the test, everything. Now, how do you generate these parts? In a traditional world, you will have to go to the manufacturing process, make tooling, do casting, forging, everything, and then come back with the parts. Now this is going to take you 4 to 6 weeks or 4 to 6 months sometimes, depending on different industries. Now with 3D printing, it can be overnight. You can get these parts
Mm,
overnight. Then what happens is, the quality of design improves. You can try different variations, iterations, and that's why you see today, you see mobile phones every month, new models coming in. Every 2 months you get a new model. Cars coming more faster. In olden days, we still remember, we had one ambassador for many years. uh, and then came Maruti 800 for also several, maybe a decade it was there, like that. But now you see every 6 months, you can see a car, a new motorcycle coming in. How is all this
Mm,
possible? Because there are tools inside 3D printing which helps them to generate these prototypes quickly, and
mm.
they are able to test rapidly, and then they are able to bring things faster into the market. So it can be in any industry, it can be washing machines, it can be televisions, it can be anything, so you can, if you can print and test faster, you can bring products faster into the market.
Can this also be on large scale? You talked about one. Now, 3D printing, are they also on the large scale? Let's say, for example, I want to now print 1 million cars or 1 million washing machines. Is that possible? Is that cheaper than the regular manufacturing process?
I think today the limitation of 3D printing is definitely the speed. So 1
Mm,
million is not a number which 3D printing can definitely look at. I'm sure over the years it will evolve, but at present we are in the thousands, maybe 50,000, 60,000, maybe up to 1 lakh, depending on what sort of parts, how big it is, and other things. That's the volume we are talking about. So definitely the mass manufacturing market is still not there for 3D printing. It's for the, I mean, it's still in the batch production range, I would say, and that's why aerospace and space and all these things are quite interesting at this point of time. And secondly, of course, when I talk about limitation, apart from the speed, the number of material choices we have is also, I wouldn't say limited, is limited compared to what is available in the world. So, so I think that's one of the factor. And the third most important factor, I would say, for the constraints in 3D printing, I would say, is the lack of knowledge. Because today, I'm very happy that you wanted to make a session of 3D printing, because today, when you look across the world, even in developed countries, 3D printing is still not as a subject, a main subject in the engineering field. 3D printing is more talked as a terminology, you know. But
mm.
today, with 3D printing being a key component of Industry 4.0 and smart factory and connected factory, uh, I think it's high time people learn what 3D printing can do for them in a more systemized, in a more efficient way. And I think the lack of knowledge can also mean that where you don't know how to go about this technology, and that also defines the success of many projects which we work in.
Okay. So you talked about this lack of knowledge. How can I say, for example, it could be Joseph as an individual, or it could be kids who are going through engineering colleges now. How can we learn about 3D printing? What are the sources that are available? One, two, not just from a knowledge perspective, but if I want to print something, how can I go about doing that?
See, I mean, I know from academia, specifically engineering colleges, a lot of them are setting up their own labs with 3D printing, and they want the students to have structured training program. Even recently, I think a week back, there's been a mandate given by the government. How 3D printing will function. Some of the strategies have been listed by the government as it is. So definitely, there has been a clear focus by the government to bring it to the students, to bring it to the MSMEs, how we can take it forward. So when you look at it, how you can learn, unfortunately, there are very limited options available. From as I mentioned, people are not still able to teach them as a manufacturing technology. I mean, they still teach with basic terminologies. But nevertheless, I think there are some sites like Additive Academy, Additive Learning, or Additive Minds Academy. Sorry, Additive Minds Academy. So all of them are able to provide online training, and I think as people start using these opportunities, people can learn in that. But nevertheless, I also seen IITs and Anna universities and all these leading colleges are also now setting up center of excellence for 3D printing, where they are also trying to bring in education as a part of the syllabus. So I guess probably in the next 3 to 5 years, there'll be more people with enough knowledge to take 3D printing to the next level.
What are the opportunities that are opening up in this field?
Uh, for example, many fields are touched by 3D printing when you talk about opportunities. I mean, for example, if you know this company Mini Cooper, they
Yeah.
are talking about custom cars for you, for example. So you can go to a Mini
Hmm.
Cooper showroom, buy a car, and then they give you an app, and then you can, after a while, you decide, okay, I don't like these blue color, red color interiors, I want to change it. You can order a custom app, custom design for you, where even you can have your names engraved in it, and then you can put them on the car. So there's a lot of customization which is possible, or personalization which is possible, driven heavily by automotive industries who want to do that. Number two is lifestyle. You know, so when you talk about lifestyle, you talk about jewelry. You know, so you can actually 3D print a jewel with whatever you want engraved in it. And you can also make a big. You can make something look very big, but inside is completely hollow. So it looks like quite nice, but actually it's not very expensive. So a lot of jewelry companies also are looking into 3D printing, where they can look at it. And also when you look into medical again, for example, I can tell an interesting story. One of my friend, he had a tumor in the stomach. So they went and they took CT scan, MRI scan, and other things, and they said you have to do a surgery. But then when we asked the surgeon, he mentioned, unfortunately, the tumor was cancerous. So he mentioned that we really don't know how big is this tumor and how we can cut it. Can we take it out completely because it's on the bone? He says only after we open the patient, we'll know what we can do. But fortunately, we were able to get the CT MRI scan and send it to a 3D printing printer, where we removed all those flesh data, and then we were able to print the bone with the tumor, and then we present it to the surgeon. The surgeon really was able to understand how much he has to cut, how much depth. So he planned everything before the surgery, and in the end, the operation was successful. I will tell you, without 3D printing, he don't even probably will also be thinking how much anesthesia, how much time I need for this surgery. So I think in different industries, it definitely helps. For example, the construction industry. Now we've been seeing uh, there have been several single-story, multi-story houses being 3D printed. There's also been a program where people are talking about, can we 3D print for all the public area? Can we 3D print washrooms for people to use them, so that you can have a cleaner place, the cleaner country as such. So I mean the opportunities definitely from an application point of view can be medical industry, aerospace industry, automotive, jewelry, even a lifestyle. For example, there are many interiors which have been printed. Your own personalized lampstands can be printed. So it's huge from a opportunity from let's say software or anything. 3D printing still is trying to get into the connected manufacturing space. So there are different embedded systems being developed, so that different machineries can talk to 3D printing. And then we are also trying to work on areas like where AGVs can bring the components from one station to another station. In fact, it's available in Dusseldorf, but we are also trying to make them as a shared module, so that it can work. And also in research and development, especially from material science, there are so many material industries which are trying to
Hmm.
develop raw materials which can suit 3D printing. Because when you're growing from zero, you need to have certain recipe for it. So every industry definitely has a knowledge or a play in 3D printing. For example, if you don't do lasers and optics, when we started, we had carbon dioxide lasers, and then we have fiber lasers. Now, in fiber laser, it was continuous wave. Now, even you can use pulsed wave laser. So, every industry, all these are young industries, they have huge potential to grow. Now, all these industries are contributing to the growth of 3D printing, and this is helping the industry to grow to the next level, basically.
Wow, fantastic! Hearing those use case stories, especially of the your friend's bone being printed, that was awesome. Thanks for sharing that, Anand. See, you talked about this material, the improvements in material science, improvements in the laser beams, and so on and so forth. What kind of the improvements in other technologies that will accelerate the 3D printing either in adoption or even in growth? What are those kind of technologies which will accelerate 3D printing?
As I mentioned, the biggest the technology which can help 3D printing definitely is the material science industry. You know, so
Hmm.
this is purely number one. And as I mentioned, the 3D printers can works on different methodologies. One is the powder bed, which use laser. So when we talk about powder bed and laser, typically any improvement on laser science, optics, scanners can definitely increase the speed of them. And there are certain things which works on filaments. So specifically, the different drives, motors, all these things also contribute to the speed in which it can create parts. So I think definitely, from my opinion, two major ones are optics, lasers, and materials, which can grow.
Materials. Okay.
And
When do you think?
sorry, one point I wanted to mention to you. Also, you talked about opportunities, which can hit on 3D printing, especially from an Indian perspective. When you look across the world, 7 out of 10 products which comes out has an Indian name in it. You know, there's always a group of Indians working in out of most of the product development in the world. So I would say 7 out of 10. That's a study actually, where the Indian name is there. So we are very good in designing, we are very good in product
Hmm.
development, but we have never been a manufacturing economy. We've always been a
Hmm.
service economy. Imagine the same brain power what we have. If we combine that brain power with 3D printing, definitely India can become from a service economy to a manufacturing economy. So it definitely gives a huge impetus for us to grow as we see the next 10-20 years from there.
Fantastic. In fact, some of the reports that I'm reading from government, I think they are going to focus more on these kinds of manufacturing as economy rather than so far the focus has been on service. So I think there's going to be a huge growth potential in India for this. So that's a good point. Uh, Anand, you touched upon about the impact of 3D printing on climate change. Can you go a little deeper on it? Because again, these seems to be two different intersections. This could improve quite a bit about our lifestyle, life, medical, and so on and so forth. But there is also a huge catastrophe that is waiting to happen, which is the climate change. So how can this mitigate, or how will this play in that role?
Yeah, there are two main factors. The first one is climate change is driven by all these pollution, carbon emissions, and all those things. When you look at the planes which are flying around, they pollute the environment like hell.
Hmm.
And it's all boils down to consumption of fuel, how much they're burning. And the consumption of fuel or the burning boils down to the weight it's carrying, in the end.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
today with 3D printing, we are able to address that weight reduction. We also know that for every gram we save millions and millions of fuel cost in the life of the airplane or the life of the automotive or whichever transportation system you're talking about. And every gram we save definitely has a huge impact on the climate change. This is number one, on the use phase of the climate change. Number two, as I mentioned, we are able to combine 4 or 5 operation as one single operation. For example, as I gave you an
Hmm.
example of a cup with a handle, maybe if you imagine, you have to first make the cup, then that's one operation, then make a handle, which is a second operation, and maybe there is a hole somewhere you have to put the third operation. Imagine it would need three different machines, electric power, manpower, lot of things to that, which definitely has a higher carbon output, and all of them confined to one single system, so I don't have to print three operations, I just print them as one operation. So definitely, this is also has an impact on that. However, studies have been done to see what exactly is the carbon footprint of these printers,
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
and I hope that probably by beginning of next year, we will have the clarity on how these carbon footprints can be defined. But nevertheless, today we can see from the use cases, how it's impacting the green environment or the carbon footprint.
When can I print my own house, Anand?
I think there are a few companies which are trying to offer it in India. Um, I've also seen a few of them, and it's quite interesting. And you don't have to wait too long. Uh,
Yeah.
but I've seen that they have been able to print within a week something very interesting. You know, so I don't have an answer from a timeline, but I'm sure that all these in the next 3 years we can have these realized.
And on that particular line, will I be able to demolish it, reuse those materials, and reprint something else?
Definitely. See, you can, because it's especially in the construction side. There have been informations which say that you can actually whatever comes out and solidified, you are able to recover a good percentage out of the waste, and then you can reuse them. So when you print a house, imagine to buy a 3D printer which also makes breakfast, because 3D printer also are in the food industry, for example. When we
Hmm.
talk about food, I've seen a food grade printer which can make like your children, they want different characters for breakfast, like chocos, so they can print those chocos for breakfast for them for the morning, and hopefully you will not have to force them to eat, because they can have maybe Iron Man for breakfast, Hulk for lunch, and maybe a more younger version or a thinner version for dinner. So that's one thing. And also, when we spoke about medical, in medical, there's also been a lot of interest on tissue engineering. You know, so we are talking about bioprinting. So
Hmm.
today there's been a lot of studies going on. It's still not commercially available, but you can print human spare parts. I'm not talking about bones, but a kidney or a heart, or a liver. There's been a lot of work going on, and that's where when you print them, you should also have tissue for growth, cell
Mm.
growth around it. So a lot of bioprinters has been also been in the market, trying to develop such things. So tomorrow, I also think that people don't have to wait for matching, transplant to be done. They can get it 3D printed, and then they can use them. But what is available today, I can say, is on the pharma side. For example, when you go to a medical shop, the doctor writes you a prescription, Crocin 100 mg or whatever, but everything is 100, 250, 10, 5, but the medicine what we take has to be given in dosage according to our anatomy, our height, our weight, and
Hmm.
what our body can absorb. Of course, for crocin and gelusil, it's not a big difference. But for very some critical drugs, it's important that you should have something very specific for your anatomy. Let's say like 3.2 milligram. Have you seen a pill like that? You cannot. So there's been companies like Merck, which is working on such industries, and they've been trying to 3D print tablets according to anatomy and other things. So again, maybe you don't be surprised at some point of time you go to a pharmacy and you tell him, I want a 3.2. He said, just wait, and he prints you a tablet and gives it to you. You know, so
Yeah.
that could be the future.
Fantastic.
You know.
Yeah, and everything that you are painting, that's why it all looks like science fiction or magic. So yeah, I mean, that would be an interesting world to live in. Now, have you used any of these 3D printing things in your own personal life? You talked about you used it for your friend, but in any other life, have you used any of these things for yourself?
Yeah, my son has a dental coping. For example, he has, this teeth. So when you go to a dentist
Yeah.
and you have to replace these copings, for example, um, you go to him. He takes an impression, and then he tells you
Yeah.
you want ceramic, you want zirconia, you want a metal free or metal casted one. all these stuff. So when he went there, he knew about 3D printing. So he asked the doctor, can I get a 3D printed coping for me? And he got it done. And in India, several lakhs of people have got the 3D printed copings. Basically, there have been
Mm,
labs which has been
mm.
doing it. Especially, there are big labs in Kerala, Bangalore, Hyderabad, Chennai, which are doing this every day. It's a I wouldn't be surprised in a month. It's like more than 1 lakh, 2 lakh pieces have been printed, 3D printed. So he got one. So he came back to me and said, if something goes wrong, I'll blame you, he said. So for once, I am to blame, get the blame. So um, I think that's the closest
Okay.
one I had from personally using them. But I've seen also a couple of known contacts who had the knee surgery, and then they had adopted for 3D printing knees because it's more lighter, and you have better functionality. As I said, the anatomy fits pretty well.
Mm.
So that's something which I personally seen. And of course, I don't have it now, but I also used to have a 3D printed ring, you know, for my fingers, and with names engraved on that properly, and with a special design. One more thing, we also had 3D printing pens. I mean, as I said, lifestyle medical. This is very close to us. Of course, I don't own an aircraft, so I cannot speak about aerospace parts. But these are things which we could definitely look at it. And one thing which we did is I have a 3D printer at home. So when
Mhm.
I wanted to, the air conditioned remote, right? So I was always keeping it here and there, and I was feeling I need to fix it on a place. So I really couldn't find something to hold it. So what I did was we were able to download that holder from the internet, and we could 3D print them, and then we stuck it onto the door, and then we were able to print it. So we made our own part from 3D printing at home. So
Awesome.
I mean,
You're using your own medicine, so fantastic it is. How much does a printer cost if I want to own?
I think a decent printer can cost anywhere from, for learning at least, for home
Yeah,
use can be anywhere from 50,000 rupees or 40,000 rupees onwards. Industrial grade, I mean, that is one level. The other level
yeah,
would
yeah.
be something which is for quick design verification in offices. That could be in the range of, let's say, 30, 40 lakhs printer. And industrial ones, where you can use it for aircraft, medical, those would be like 5 crore, 3 crore, 2 crore, something like that. Depending on whether it's
Okay,
polymer or metal, it can change.
okay. Anand, as I said, we can keep on talking about this. The more I talk about it, the more I talk with you. I'm learning more and I want to have more answers, but we don't have much time. So thank you for taking your time and sharing your views, sharing some of these stories and all about 3D printing. Thank you very much, Anand.
Thank you, Jude, for your time, and it was interesting, nice talking to you, and look forward to catching up again. Bye.
I hope you enjoyed our conversation. If you liked it, can you please share it with at least one of your friends? Thank you. Have a life of wins.